Thank you so much, Becky. Welcome, everybody who's come to listen to the session today. Welcome to this amazing panel that we have here. Thank you for joining us at this CabinSpace live discussion where we'll be talking about the latest trends and capabilities in IFE content personalization. First, a little bit about me. My name is Marianne Simpson. I was a journalist in this space for about 15 years before starting a small boutique PR agency. So now I help companies in the industry tell their stories and raise awareness about their brands. Increasingly, personalization is being viewed as the key to better engagement. As we all know, better engagement leads to better brand awareness, increased loyalty, and yes, even better opportunities to monetize our IFE and other digital touchpoints. So now I hope you'll please join me in welcoming our fabulous panel of industry experts. We'll start down at the end with Patrick Biggerstaff, who's the Senior Director, Digital Solutions, Product Line Management, Panasonic.
Hello.
Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
Next, Patrick, we have Daniel McInnes, who's the Director of Priestman Good.
Hi there.
Hello. Next to Daniel, we've got Kevin Clark, who is the CEO at Blue Box Aviation.
Hello.
Next to Kevin, hi. Next to Kevin, we have Antonio Panim, who's the Airline Engagement Director for the Airline Passenger Experience Association. And last but not least, we have Dimi Sirangelos.
Exactly. Thanks for having me.
From Spafax. All right. To get started, I'd like to ask each of you to introduce yourself a little bit, talk about your role, and I'd also really like to know one thing about the passenger experience, the digital passenger experience in particular, that you wish was better personalized and you would be willing to give your personal data to see that happen. So I'll start with you, Dimi.
Yeah, so as Marianne said, my name is Dimitri Rangelos. I'm the VP for Business Development, Innovation and IFE Technology at Spafax. Our role has changed through the last year, so we are not a content service provider anymore. We are an experience service provider. And with this change, the personalization becomes more important. When it comes to personalization, why I would give my data away would be when I'm starting for a travel and I fly with one of the big airlines and I know that I will find a huge amount of titles on board of the aircraft. I would like to be able to discover whatever is available on board prior to my flight, perhaps having a recommendation on what I can watch, because the system knows me, what I like to watch, and it makes a pre-selection for me. And when I board the aircraft, I would like to see exactly this pre-selection in front of me, without having the hassle to search 1,000 titles to find one that I like. So that's, for that reason, I would give my data away.
Okay, thank you. I see some heads nodding. Sorry, I see some heads nodding here.
Okay,
Antonio,
so
what would you like?
My name is Antonio Panim from Apex, so the Airline Passenger Experience Association. So, and I'm responsible for the top 100 global airlines. So basically, Apex, we have expos like all the years. Like difference, we have the content market that we did in Dubai. We have now the Expect Tech and the Global Expo in September. So basically, my role is to be near the airlines and to engage with them what they need, and regarding this new technology, principal, the contents like software, even hardware. So we are close with them and we try like in our expos to deliver like all the knowledge with all our partners, but basically for the airlines find the solutions there. So that's mainly our goal. And yeah, so regarding contents, I'm on this IFE business for a lot of years, and the contents was always like a gap for some airlines because, for example, I was working in a wet lease airline that we had contents different because different operations worldwide. We needed contents with different languages, subtitles, etc. it's always a challenge. And see, nowadays, with our new technology, the airlines have more solutions to have on board that goes to increase the passenger experience, and that's the goal.
Okay, and is there an area of the passenger experience that you would be willing to give your personal data to see better personalization?
The meal preferences, basically. I like it. I fly a lot, and I have some some restrictions, and it's good when some airlines you can pre-flight, you can order, or you can have that's so good. So yeah.
Perfect, thank you. How about you?
Okay, I'm Kevin Clark. I'm the Chief Executive of Blue Box Aviation Systems. My background, I'm a technologist. I'm an engineer by background. I started life in designing systems for military aircraft and then latterly moved into the commercial world. So I've been in the sector for the commercial aviation sector for about 15 years. And when I started, we were principally in the in-flight entertainment space. That has evolved at an ever-increasing pace. So we're now in the world of delivering digital environments. So we provide hardware and also software, mostly software, to enable digital engagement with passengers on commercial aircraft, whether it's full service or low cost or regional or leisure. It does change depending on the environment in which the systems are being deployed. And I think the preferences change with that as well. The impacts change, so it's worth being cognizant of that as we think about where you might be getting benefit and where you might be getting trade-offs. From a personal point of view, I come at it somewhat similar to the guys here, but a little bit back to front. My ideal, certainly from an in-flight entertainment point of view, would be to get on an aircraft where I actually have the if you like, the smarts of the system reducing my choice. And what I mean by that is removing the things, knowing me well enough to remove the things that to me are clutter. I'm never interested in romantic comedies, for example, just, and other types of genre. Remove all of that and leave me with the stuff that I still want to browse. I still like to engage with the system, to explore things that might be interesting and then make a choice. So it's kind of a little bit back to front. So don't tell me what I should watch or might be interested in watching. Get rid of the stuff I'm not interested in and then give me a little bit of a narrow focus.
Cool, that's really interesting. Daniel, I saw you nodding your head there.
Yeah, hi.
I feel like you might agree with Kevin.
Yeah, a little bit. My name's Daniel McInnes, Director at Priestman Good, and I've been there for 23 years, and we predominantly an industrial design company, but what we've seen over the many years of designing interiors for aircraft, it's that seamless connection between the digital and the physical, so it's got more prevalent over the last couple of years. So anything that we're doing, we're always thinking about how those parts interconnect rather than a screen and a physical product. There's something that can connect them. The thing that I'd give my data away for, it's a little bit like you. I think the key thing is that Netflix experience. I want to get onto the plane. I either want, I did 15 flights last year, long haul, and I want to pick up where I last went on a flight. I want to be onto that film on my way home. I want it to not pick up films that I don't want to watch. So all of those things are key. I'd also like, if I've got an app on a phone, that it's got all of my information. So if I board and the Wi-Fi is on there, it automatically links me on there. So I don't have to go through my computer, my phone, the screen app to get all of that Wi-Fi information together. So it feels like I've just gone home and I've connected through my door and everything links in. All of those things should be kind of the basics of what you do in the future. For me anyway. They're the back-end parts, but they should be things that are the basic ones that you can then kind of build upon.
And what data would you be happy to share for that experience?
Well, I think if you've got that app, you can start building those preferences in there. So if it has a login to one of your accounts about what you'd like to watch, what you don't like to watch, the meals that you want to see, that you want to eat, but also you get the kind of payment information, so it automatically bills when you go onto the internet. all of that should be pretty easy to do if you have a very connected system. But that's what I'd wish anyway.
Okay,
Okay.
your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm Patrick Biggerstaff, so I'm the Senior Director, Product Line Management at Panasonic, looking after the digital portfolio. So, you know, we like to look at the seat back monitor as, you know, the third digital touch point in a seamless journey. And, you know, the first, you have website, you have mobile, and then you have the seat back. And so my team is looking at all the digital experiences that can go into that to bring these things together. So we have shopping apps, we have a marketing or advertising app, we've got a interface builder, all these things, and a personalization product actually that can bring passenger data to adapt the experience on board. And really what we're trying to look at, particularly in personalization, is what is this experience gap that we have in that third digital channel? Because the numbers that our CEO mentioned today, less than 5% of aircraft flying have the ability to bring in personalized information into the cabin experience. So there's a huge experience gap that's there, but a lot of potential as, you know, connectivity becomes more prevalent and things like that. For me, in terms of the experience, you know, Dimi sort of stole my thunder there. But, you know, it's a problem he causes by sending too much content to the airlines. But I definitely agree that that's a channel that I'd want more personalization, what we can find. Yeah. But beyond that, for me particularly, it's also around disruption handling and IROP situations. So if the aircraft knows or if the airline knows that I'm going to be disrupted, I want them to know what else my plans are, how are they going to adapt to me and push that information to me.
Right, wicked. Thank you, everybody. That's really insightful. So obviously we're talking a lot about data. Where are we currently getting data from to use or to feed into these models? And where are we doing it well and where do we need to improve? Raise your hand if you want.
Yeah, well, I'll dive in on that one. So there's a lot of data, obviously, generated in these experiences on board. So a lot of the data can come from contextualized experiences on board. What are they browsing? What are they watching? All these contextual cues that you can get from the interaction within the seatback experience itself. But beyond that, you know, we also have a product that we link into the airline's loyalty system, and they can send us their passenger data, and we can take that information and tailor it into personalized experiences on board. It starts with, you know, just kind of traditional passenger manifest data that they would send through, but then that can expand out to any kind of field that the airline might have. So if the airline is capturing loyalty data or data that their passenger is a credit card holder or an airline credit card holder, they can pass all that through to our system. We can then adapt the onboard experience to kind of meet the needs and tailor to that specific passenger.
Yeah, I think one of the important parts of that though is you need to be able to, the data will tell you, I guess, characteristics of that passenger, whether it's in the app or whether it's what they're doing in the flight, and there's a different element in there as well. But you need to then be able to apply that to a model that says, well, if I've got these characteristics, I need a model somewhere that tells me, well, that's what I then use to make judgments about what I would surface for that passenger. And that's where there's still a lot of evolution, a lot of development still to happen, because that's the really clever bit. There's lots, and as you say, there's lots of data out there. Part of the clever bit is, well, what data is relevant and what are we going to use it, how are we going to make judgments, what are we going to benchmark it against that will give us things that we can present to passengers that will give that personalisation.
I can really agree with that. And it's not only the way you collect data, and airlines have different IFE suppliers, and data is there, it's available, consolidating them, analyzing them, visualizing them, and then providing also a predictive kind of analytics to see what would be what would sell better in the future is one thing. But also, you asked also what kind of data is not yet utilized. Besides the data that is collected inside the aircraft, we are using data, worldwide data of, that we get from different surveys.
That was going to be my next question about
You see?
third party. Can we get it? Do we
Yeah.
have to collect it all ourselves? Can we get it from
Exactly. So there are a lot of data around there, and you have different systems that allow you to collect this data. But again, coming back to your point is, how do you analyze the data? What mechanism is behind the analysis so that the result that you can take out of that is it helps you to make better decisions. And when we start then analyzing data which help us to offer a better package of movies or a better package of other services, this is where data then is helpful for us.
Okay. I'd love, not everybody has to answer this one because they might not be able to, but you know, we all work with airlines here. We're not airlines, we work with airlines. Who in your mind, as an airline, is leading the way with this?
Delta. Yeah, there's some airlines out there I think are,
Yeah.
they've got big data sets. They can work with those data sets. They've also got relatively broad and deep offerings. You know, if you're an LCC and you're running your whole IFE service on, I've got to minimize costs, so I've got a relatively shallow amount of content, there's not actually a lot you're going to be able to do in terms of surfacing things. But if you've got a wide selection of options and you've got a relationship with your passengers, you know, the frequent flyers or enough occasional flyers, and they're prepared to share that data with you, they can bring those things together and say, well, we can extract some information from this and actually put it into a product that will give some of that preference out. Then, you know, some of the American carriers, for example, or Cathay Pacific, some of the initiatives, where they're all pretty much on a journey. But I think the common thread that I see through a lot of that is you need to know and understand the passenger, and you can't really do that unless you've got some persistence of information about the passenger, whether it's a frequent flyer program or something, the loyalty program they sign up to. But that gets you the baseline information, and then you use that to make it work. But I think, you know, Delta, I think, are really on a really strong journey there. Cathay Pacific on a really strong journey. JetBlue. So there are examples out there. They're not, I think, where they ultimately want to be, but they're on that journey. And I think the extra really clever bit for some of those is it's not just about the IFE experience. It's right from before the journey starts to after the journey ends is how you thread all preferences through that whole journey, where this is just one part of it. It's key.
But it is a lot back down to the hardware as well, because it's all quite old. And if you look at what everybody's flying, it's 5 years out of date in terms of what you'd have at home. But if you're looking at what Panasonic are doing, and I'm going to big you up here, but the Maya work that you did last year and we were involved in, it's really trying to put some of that tech of understanding how people can input their own data into that. So you can make the well-being from a passenger during a flight. They can work about how they're talking about their meal service, changing the lights, changing the mood. So it actually accommodates all of that, but it's people willing to put that information into the system during the flight, on their app, or at any other point. I think it's key that sort of companies like Panasonic educate the airlines on what they can actually do, because I don't think they've been, totally told about what they can over the last couple of years. I think you've got to a point where the tech is really good, and now you can start implementing more and more sort of features and well-being and all of these details in there now.
Agree.
You touched on a really great point there in that, yeah, the new systems have a lot of capabilities.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff that Panasonic's putting out, that's fantastic. But a lot of people have mixed fleets.
Right.
Or older aircraft, leased aircraft that have, you know, older systems or ones with less capabilities. So what are some like lo-fi hacks, some quick, easy wins that an airline that, you know, either has a mixed fleet or an older fleet can do to try and bump the experience up?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been doing personalization for, I think, over 10 years at Panasonic, and I think we won awards for implementation back 10 years ago with systems that are quite old, and you rightly point out that they're quite old. But, you know, if you only look forward to the new systems, you're missing a huge part of the flying fleet, and I think you do have to go and see what you can do on these older systems. And, you know, inherently what we built in these 10 years that we've been doing it, it functions in terms of, you know, you can bring in the customer data and put it on you can welcome them on board personally, you can put in their specific flight information. That's kind of low bandwidth usage there that you're putting through. But other things like simple recommendations, you know, you like this movie and you can watch these other movies. Again, these are things that we've been doing for a number of years. As the systems get more powerful, we're going to be able to use it a lot better, bring in AI into the equation and start doing some very different things there.
And also, again, combining data. It's not only the data that you collect inside the aircraft, that you can group audiences, you can provide to these grouped audiences when an airline flies from A to B, when you have a different audiences, then you can personalize in a specific level, not hyper-personalize, but at a level where it's more convenient than just doing nothing.
Yeah, so regarding Apex, our data that is important is the passenger feedback. Most of the times we receive that, we work with the app that we deliver the awards based on that app when we have 1 million feedback for each airline. And it's important, like, to understand also in the point of view of the airline, they have different systems, they have different routes, they have different cultures flying with them. So it's so important in our days that the new IFE systems bring more than to the journey of the families, basically, with the kids. Now you have in-flight maps that show the animals, that's when you are flying. So there's so many things that the IFE suppliers are delivering that is so good to the future of the passenger experience. We are so happy with that there is more and more commitment with this.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We talked a little bit about collecting data throughout the entire journey, not just on board, but behavior from booking through to use of the airline app and what have you. But I know Spafax, for example, is working really hard to deliver content throughout the journey, so allowing people to view what's on board, create a playlist, maybe begin to stream at the gate. So when we talk about personalization, if we're beginning to deliver content at other points in the journey besides it being on board, can we also personalize that content?
Yeah, I mean,
well, it's more outside of the aircraft, right? So,
right.
But still, there is a possibility, because it's everything web-based. Everything is in the cloud. Personalization, as far as when you open the opportunity to share your data, then you get also personalization. We always need to be really careful not to get too personalized, too creepy. You know, so there is a balance to take there, and I can only say for Spafax, the last 3 years or 5 years have been fundamental. They changed our profile, like being from CSP to experience service provider, because of data. So we are hard data driven, and we see really much big importance also outside of the aircraft. As you said, streaming content in a lounge where you can start a movie, the system collects where you left the movie, and you board the aircraft, and the movie continues on board of the aircraft. That is a vision that we really love to see soon.
Yeah, we've got some clients, others do as well. It's relatively simple technology to allow that persistence across different points. You could have, even on connected flights, you can go from the lounge to first flight, then lounge, then next flight, and just carry on through that whole journey, switch it on when you want, switch it back off. Those things are relatively easy to do, particularly if people have got personal devices, and whether they're watching on a personal device or they're co-watching, the sort of stuff that you guys do when you can connect to the seat back, you can then pass that information, that transient information on, and that just enriches the overall journey. And there's a lot of data there that you take with you. There is also, from a vendor's point of view, you have to be sensitive to that information. If people are giving up information and sharing it as they're traveling, then vendors have to be aware of the fact that you have responsibility to that information and not to let it go. And it raises a whole raft of other issues, but they're all manageable issues.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody want to add?
No, I was just going to agree with these guys. I completely agree, and it speaks to that experience gap that we mentioned earlier with the seat back. But when you go onto the website, you expect, if I log in as a loyalty member, I expect them to know who I am, and it's a very personalized experience on the website. My mobile app is the most personalized experience I'm going to get from the airline. But then we drop off on the seat back, and that's a big gap that we want to try to address and need to do that. Yeah.
All right, everybody's talking about AI right now. What is the role of AI in really nailing this content personalization thing?
That's a very good question. May I
question
take
for
it?
Dim.
Yeah, I take it. It plays a big role on every point of delivering the content. So it doesn't matter if we are a CSP, an ESP, an IFE supplier, or whatever. On every element of our business, we are using AI already. But when it comes to content, we have a new product that is called Story Wonder, which is literally it's based on AI and creates stories for children before they board an aircraft, where the child is the hero of the story, and implementing there the brand of the airline. So if you fly, I will say one example with Discover, and you fly to Ibiza, and the family is boarding, they can already create an AI-based story where the son is the hero that flies to Ibiza and solves a mystery. Yeah. So this kind of personalized storytelling, it's totally based on AI. It's a very protected LLM for children. So you see more and more content created through AI, but very personalized and attached to the brand of the airline. Is reality also even today. So
I think that's really powerful stuff.
That's
I
really
can
nice.
tell.
It's true loyalty, isn't it?
Yeah.
As soon as you get on there, you've connected with that child. Really nice.
But I think AI is going to play a big role in everything going forward. I mean, you look at the size of the libraries that are going on board now, and the size of the servers that are able to take 4 years. I think we announced 4 years of content you could put on our newest servers. So that's a lot of content, very hard to find. So using these AI tools to help kind of curate that selection is going to be very powerful, and it goes beyond also known passengers as well. So you can be an unknown passenger. I have no data about you, but as you start browsing through the system, I'm going to learn about you, and I can start modifying my recommendations for you. So that's going to tailor the onboard experience. But then beyond that, also on the operations side, figuring out what content they should be loading. And then as we start to look forward into things like edge caching and things like that, is can we intelligently edge cache and not just send a whole library up and call that edge caching, but intelligently based on what we know of the passengers and the mix there, say we're only going to send this subset of it up to the aircraft and be a little more intelligent there. So AI is going to play obviously a bigger and bigger role as we go forward.
Yeah, and I think that user interface that we're thinking about of delivering that content actually delivers other things as well. It's not just the IFE content. It can deliver retail content. It can deliver advertising content. Yeah. Some of that done in a subtle way. And I think the AI engines allow much deeper analysis than previously possible of the data sets to determine what is the right kind of advertising, for example, to to present that's not intrusive, it is relevant, and therefore it's appreciated. Similarly, and I think the data sets get even deeper in this when you get into retail, when you start to think about, well, what sort of things could be recommended as purchasing options, or what you might eat, or what you might bundle, or what you might dynamically price even on aircraft. So there's a lot of dimensions to the data sets or what's presented to the eyes that you can apply AI to, that makes it much more effective, and it will get much more sophisticated.
Yeah, so AI also, in my point of view, are also important for the accessibility for some people that have some needs on board. That's the IFE could help, and will, I think, in the future will be much easier for these persons enjoy on board, because the system are prepared for all type of needs, and I think AI could be like a really good help on that.
I have another point, just because every one of us thinks that installing an IFE system on board or bringing content on board is a costly thing. So wherever in the process of delivering a content on board we can apply AI and minimize the cost of delivery of IFE, and if we transfer these savings to our airline customers, it will take some pain out of the costly IFE. So we start already today to utilize AI for translations, to utilize AI for dubbing, to utilize AI for even screening movies for cultural purposes. Right? So we try on every area to utilize AI in order to minimize cost and to transfer these savings to the airlines.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back a couple steps now. Thank you for that. That was a really great discussion, guys. We talked about Story Wonder, and we talked about hyper-personalization. I wonder what you guys are seeing right now in terms of, we have Meta and the metaverse, people creating avatars, this whole idea that people might be, living in a Sims universe or having more of an online persona lately. Is that something that you guys are tracking for an IFE system, where somebody might be able to personalize it in terms of having an avatar or having it connect to their online world in some way?
So we, from a passenger point of view, we come and understand what the client wants, and we've been building projects where it's not just a screen. You don't want it just to be a TV screen with a controller. You want to make sure that the whole space works with you, and that can be smart services, it can be the lighting changing for the better well-being of that passenger. So you're not just in this kind of box with a TV. All of those parts where you're hyper-personalizing pieces, you can change the colors, you can change you can have a vibrating seat if you need to stand up after halfway through the journey. It knows that you need to do that. It's a bit like your smartwatch, really. It'll tell you have to get up. Yeah. I think there's all of these things that you can kind of control. It also allows you to...
That seamlessness you were talking about before.
Totally. And I think there's a really weird disconnect where, you get in certain seats and it's beautifully designed, and then you've got a monitor, and if you want to work out what time of the day it is during your flight and it's at night time, turn on the screen and you wake yourself up because it's bright. So actually building in other parts of the IFE system that are maybe in a smart surface that's hidden away underneath a bit of fabric that only comes on when you need it, it just makes that journey feel less intrusive. So any bits of the IFE system that you can kind of integrate in, and it just feels like it should be there. It's like being in a car. You've got all of these parts that are kind of work so well together, but it seems like very disconnected when you're on an aeroplane. So I think for us it's trying to make that whole system feel like it's a connected product.
Anybody want to add to that?
Again, how immersive a system gets and what you can offer. Again, there are different touch points where you can offer to a passenger to get more immersive. Or if it's a VR destination guide, or things like that, where your environment gets more immersive. I think, again, here we need to to take all the different touch points and see where we can make more immersive products.
Yes, yeah.
I think it also is like, how do you work for different ages as well? You know,
Yes.
you've got,
Yeah.
it's perfect for that, you know, the one perfect person that's going on, but you've also got 95-year-old that may be the first time flying. You've got Gen Alpha that want everything right now, or will do in a couple of years' time. There's all of these kind of groups that have a very different offer.
Yeah.
I think for us, more than anything, it's how do you adapt it? How do you use the tech that you're developing and make it unique for each of those passengers going on board?
True.
Yeah, true.
All right, I've got a question. This one is just from my head.
Yeah.
We're talking about a lot of ways to like sneakily collect data and learn and use all these high-tech methods. What about like a simple survey? Like if I got on a plane and it was like, hey, what kind of mood are you in today? What was the last favorite movie you watched? And you know, that kind of stuff. I'd happily answer 3 or 4 questions and let the system use that data to tell me what to watch that day or to help me find things.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing more of that?
I would even add another question to this. Not what was your favorite movies, but which movie did you miss? Because this would also drive airlines and us to be more, to curate in a better way. So it's not only what you liked. Surveys in total, we are using huge amount of data.
There's so much time. You know, when you first get on the plane and your screen doesn't work yet, if you give me a questionnaire at that point when I'm tapping it, like, can I watch?
Yeah.
Can I watch? Can I watch? I'll happily answer those questions.
Yeah.
But, you said about app. That's a nice place to have a survey, right?
Yeah, so we have the app. I mean, so we have a companion app that kind of extends the onboard experience to the ground. It can be integrated into the airline's own app, and in that you can bring in your list of movies, so you can browse on the ground before you can start favoriting these things on the ground, and then that can translate on board, and that can feed this model already. We also have a product, a surveys product, which is essentially micro surveys after you've watched something, thumbs up, thumbs down, and then that can help build the model as well.
Yeah. I mean, right, the data scientists won't agree with me on this because I've had this debate, but I think what you really need 3 questions when you get on a plane. If you can answer 3 questions, one of which is, you rate what mood you're in, because we can have a profile, and that profile is great, but you can't tell me that what you want to watch is entirely dictated by that, because I might get on there when I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm flying in the morning, I want to think about other things, versus it's late at night, I'm relaxed, I'm chilled, I might have a different mood. I might have a different the mood will have a big impact. So that's not in the system. You have to tell the system that, or by your actions, and how the system might pick some of this up might be if you like a full journey view. So if your app, for example, had a full journey view, and you're coming onto this flight because you've missed a connection, well, you're likely to be stressed. So that's a stress point. So that might give you a different input than it would if you got on a flight because you just moved from one to the next. And the chance to respond to that, as probably most of us know, where you have something gone wrong and whoever's delivering a service to you goes above and beyond to meet that or address that issue, gets a higher NPS than where it's all just goes smoothly. So and that's the context. If you like the now context, it's not a big data scientist issue, but it's a data context there that you can work with. Is anyone doing it? I'm not aware of anyone doing it. To answer your obvious next question.
Right. Okay. I think we're near the end of the session now. We've got about 5 minutes for a Q&A. So I hope you guys have all done your assignment while we've been talking and thought about which question you're going to ask. Don't all rush at once.
Mark Howes, In-Flight Media. Thank you very much for this interesting insight. I may have missed this, so apologies if I did, but I know there was talk about when the passenger gives their consent to the airline, then that gives you, that allows you to work with that data. But in different regions, they have different data protection rules. So if you're working with a specific airline in a specific region, does that mean that has other factors in terms of the data that is provided, but also what kind of challenges do you face when that might happen? So in terms of what you can work with.
I'll give you one answer straight away. It's regional impacts. Sometimes you can't move the data out of a region. You can have quite tight controls over the data and where it's processed. So, for example, some of the stuff we do, where you might run some of the data on AWS services, and you're pretty agnostic of where that lives, but actually it might in certain regions have to stay in that region. So it might be on an AWS server, but it's got to stay in Europe, or it's got to stay in Australia or whatever. So it does have impacts. And you'll find it on the privacy. Those privacy notices you get, which most people just click and go through, can be very, very specific about how the data is handled and how it's managed.
Are there any other questions from the floor?
Right, just very quickly, does anybody have like a hot tip, a golden nugget, nutshell of wisdom about personalization that they would like the audience here to take away with them?
So I'll go. So two things. So one, there was a report or a study that we talked about earlier today at our booth about the loyalty economics, and how for a lot of airlines actually flying is a loss leader, and you're making a lot more money off of the ancillaries. So the more you can personalize advertising, the more value you can drive through that.
Yeah.
The more you can personalize shopping experiences on board, the more revenue you can drive from that. So that really helps the airlines with that bottom line to make profit. The second thing, which is really important to me, especially I come from Singapore Airlines 16 years, and the personal touch is still extremely important. And I think it's not something that we can say we're going to completely get rid of this personal touch, because a lot of airlines build their reputation, their brand on this personal touch. Where digital personalization can come in is, can we help the cabin crew that are giving that personal touch? Can we give them more context to make their engagements better? But also, more importantly, a lot of that personal touch is in the premium cabins, to be clear, and where digital can then give that same kind of personalized touch and experience into the wider cabin. It becomes an equalizer almost in terms of the airlines delivering on their personalized brand promises.
Last point from my side, a tip for airlines: the more personalization is happening, the higher the value of any advertising that you have on board. And that means, I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about hyper-personalization, but audience-based personalization drives the value of your advertising inventory on board higher. That means for you, more revenue, right? That means that bringing together data analytics and personalization and advertising creates a profit center inside the cabin, instead of having cost centers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point of view. So Apex, we have a program that is called Peak Performance, that we do like a personalization matrix, let's call it that, and we do the study in a lot of factors inside of the cabin. And then the airlines, they always want to increase their level to like top level, that the passenger be delighted after the flight. So our goal is that, basically catching like all the points that was talking today, that all the data is important, depends of the type of the passenger, of course, but we do this. We collected this data for help the airline to understand like all type of passengers. So basically this is we are doing with a lot of airlines already, and we will continue also in our Apex Tech that will be in LA, and then in our Global Expo to explore more and more the personalization on board and the AI and all the new subjects that we are having. Yeah.
So I would say I don't know whether it's a pearl of wisdom or just an opinion, right? But I would say the key thing to remember in doing this is, from a passenger point of view, and it is about the passenger, but from a passenger point of view, This is about convenience. There's lots of things we do, whether it's reducing choice or focusing what's surfaced. It's just about what's making it more convenient for the passenger. And if you keep that in mind, then it doesn't necessarily the experience doesn't get cluttered by things which are not really making it any more convenient. So keep that front and center.
I totally agree. I think that's from our point of view as designers, we come in and it is that less is more effect, that you design it in such a simple way that whatever media, whatever you're putting onto the screen or in the areas, it just seems like it fits perfectly rather than overcomplicating things and making it far too visibly sort of over the top. It has to be as clean as possible so all of that media stands out as much as possible.
I like it. We'll finish on a note of simplicity in IFE content personalization. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the panel. Thank you, guys, for listening.
Thank you.